Good morning to you.
Yeah, some of our colleagues from, can you hear me?
You fine? Yep.
Yeah, some of our colleagues from Copenhagen won't be able to join us, and they requested if we can record this session. I already saw that somebody already recording it. So if you can just share the link later on.
Yeah, I'm really bad at that, Rod. I promise to record meetings and completely forget. So David has reminded me already. You've reminded me, and I've actually done it. So success.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. So, Rod, when people join, if you know how many people are coming, or when we're done, then you can tell me to go ahead if some of the guys are not coming after all. So yeah.
Yeah. As soon as we have the key people here in this meeting, then I think we can go ahead. Yeah. I'll let you know. Yeah.
You let me know, and we're ready to go.
Thank you so much.
Yep, we're getting a flood of attendees right now, which is great.
I'm glad you're running this, Tim. I'm still getting used to Teams, trying to wean myself off of GoToMeeting.
Yeah, I find GoToMeeting very odd now when I use that. Yep. Okay, so I have 9 on board.
Yeah. Let's wait for a few more minutes, team.
No, we're all good, and we have 6. No, 1, 2, 3 who have accepted an attentive. So yeah. That's on. Yep. There we go.
Hello, everybody.
Hello there, Herson. How are you?
All good. All good. How you doing?
Yeah, all good. Nice to speak to you again.
Nice to see you. Yeah, a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Arson, good morning. We'll give 2 more minutes for the others to join us.
No problem.
Thanks, Rod.
Okay. I think we can start. Michael is actually trying to connect, but he's getting some errors, but he will try to join us in a while. Colleagues, uh, and Herson, thanks for coming to this webinar or session that we requested from Winshuttle.
Mhm.
And this is in relation to our strategy to move to the next to the new actually Winshuttle's flagship automation platform, which is Evolve, and we're aiming to move to Evolve by Q1 or Q2 next year. And this team and his team will give us an overview of the key capabilities, the thing that we're going to gain from this new platform from our current studio products, which are the runners um, and the quitting. Yeah. The session is being recorded, and we're going to share this as well to the rest of our colleagues who failed to join us today. Over to you, team and Winshuttle colleagues. Thank you.
Thanks, Rod. Much appreciated. So welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us. The way that we're managing UNICEF is between myself. My name is Tim Woodhouse, and I'm based out of London. And my initial contact over the last 3 years has been with the guys in the Shared Service Centre in Hungary. We've been there a number of times, had a number of really exciting meetings. And now I've joined up with David Kaputska. David, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, so thank you. So David Kapuska with Winshuttle. I am out of our Bothell, Washington office, our headquarters in the Seattle area. I've been with the organization, this is my 10th year, and I've been dealing with Anita and the UNICEF folks as well. It looks like a couple folks had trouble with the volume. It looks like Dexter might be rejoining and another person, but just let everybody know, as Tim mentioned, we are recording this meeting and be happy to share it after the fact for those that aren't able to join or might be having some technical difficulties. So thank you all again for your time and your interest.
Super. So without further ado, let us get into sharing my desktop, and here we go. So a very familiar question. Can you see my screen? I'm sure you can.
Yes, we can see.
Thank you. So I'm glad somebody said yes. So welcome everybody to this session around your very exciting decision to move to our enterprise stack in our technology, which we call the platform Evolve, and we're going to take you through it today. So those of us involved directly for the next hour or so will be myself, and I'll go through an introduction about what Evolve is, and then we'll of course turn to the main event, which will be my colleague Achin, and Achin is our most senior engineer over here in Europe. And Achin has been a consistent player in the last 3 years when we've had these conversations. So Achin, I hope you're there. Maybe you can introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm very much here. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you virtually this time. Yeah, I've been involved with the UNICEF discussion since the last 3 years. I've been with Winshuttle for about 4 to 5 years, and I've been in the SAP space for about 10 years. So yeah, I bring all of that SAP experience along with the Winshuttle automation and process automation experience, and I help customers go through that journey of digital transformation and expansion of Winshuttle. So that's going to be my role today. I'll do the product demonstration and also taking any questions in terms of what the best practices are, how customer implementations happen, etc.
Thanks, Achin. That's wonderful. So for everyone on the call, our agenda today. So first of all, we're going to talk about what is Evolve and what have you stepped into. As I said, we're delighted that you've moved up to our enterprise stack, so that's fantastic. And then we'll switch to Achin, and Achin will look to bring out some of the attributes of the platform. First of all, we're going to concentrate on probably what you originally wanted, which was compliance and control and governance. And what we're going to do is talk about governance and control around your existing and any new scripts. How will Evolve help you make that much more corporate, much more secure, and really bring you into a new area? The second part of the demo is going to be around digital transformation of a process. Some of you I know will have attended our presentation back in May, and we're going to do a reprise of that as well. But some of you will not have any clue about what digital process automation is with Winshuttle. Some of you may just have known us from what you see as the Excel version, but that's just part of the story. So here we go. I'm going to do the lead in. It'll probably take me around 10-12 minutes, and then we'll move into action. I'm also going to try and give you some numbers from another customer's sort of projection. There's no names, no pack drill. You won't notice anything, but I'm going to try and explain what the differences are and why it was important for them to move or consider moving from the Excel version into digital process automation. So here we go. So this is how I like to talk about Winshuttle. Winshuttle is this blue halo which surrounds everything you do around SAP. It's a robust, rapid development, non-technical platform. And at the same time, very secure, very well governed, and is also a performance manager as well for protecting SAP. And I like to talk about Winshuttle in three distinct areas. One is this thing called data liquidity. The second is what we're going to major on today, digital process transformation. And the third area is how do we start to connect lots of different corporate solutions? And we talk about this as a digital junction. So in more detail, you already know about the data liquidity part, and that is how do you move data fast in and out of SAP? And you have great experience of this already because you've used Winshuttle's transaction module and query module for a number of years. So I don't think I need to major too much on that, but one thing that's going to be different today is you're going to see how to manage these in the enterprise platform. That's going to be your change around the data liquidity part. The second area, which we're going to try and bring to life today, try and create a picture in your mind as to what is digital process transformation. Well, first of all, it's about changing the customer experience. And when we say customer, we mean your internal customer. So we want to make sure that things like emails and spreadsheets and chat and calls, all those things which slow a process down, are actually removed. We want to make a digital process that's completely self-contained and one where users don't even see SAP, because often some of the users that are involved in the early stages of a process, it's just not suitable that they have to have that SAP knowledge. So we can make things very simplified, particularly for those that initiate a process, and then it gets more complex as we go through. So again, it's about making something that's, to use a phrase we're very used to as well, work from home compatible, digital, web-based, all of that. We also need to make sure you can use this outside of SAP. So you can extend this into use within your other corporate systems as well. And we've seen already what sort of benefits this delivers. Now, what does it look like? Well, it looks like you. It looks like you want to look. And this is one of our customers, Monster, and this is how they look. You won't be surprised. This is their corporate image. So it's about having, let's call it a digital shared services hub or a digital master data hub. And as you go through, Everything is very simply driven. It's graphical, it's icons, it's drop-down menus. It makes people's life much easier. And the screens that they're given, or the user interfaces that they're given, is appropriate to their role. So if their role is very much as initiator, we can even just ask questions about what they're trying to do rather than present a very heavy, a data heavy screen. So that's what we're going to talk about there. The third area is quite new, and that is being able to use us as this digital junction. So for instance, if you're involved with anything to do with RPA, I would really like you to take a look at using the Evolve API as your entry point into SAP, because we know from experience that a lot of RPA developers have said how difficult it is to integrate to SAP, particularly if you're going to load very heavy data transactions, particularly what I would call dense data. And dense data is a transaction that's full of individual line items, maybe something like an invoice. We are anything between 400 and 400 times faster than an RPA tool. So what we see now is people actually connecting directly to us, and we take that final mile. This means that your bot capacity is increased, because what took a bot 3 minutes takes Winshuttle 2.1 seconds or whatever the number is, and it allows you to make better use of those licenses. The second area is creating a digital network of different applications. So we can see the eminence of our clients who say, we'd like to harmonize some sort of digital console, and we'd like to be able to initiate some Winshuttle solutions directly from a third party. And indeed, we're seeing this a lot now. So instead of you having to have the Winshuttle license, you can start a process from outside by using the digital junction and having a digital access license instead. All of these things. And those people that remember our conversation from May, we actually were using this digital junction to bring in those invoices. Some of you that might remember, we did a presentation along with one of our partners back then, and this is the way that we integrated the digitization of those invoices. So let's just remind ourselves where we play across SAP. Well, actually, it's anywhere across the landscape. So wherever we become useful, you should always consider us, particularly in your area where you have a lot of field agents doing a lot of things. If those are connected to SAP, we'd be very interested in learning about those processes. Of course, we know finance shared services and everything around finance. And in fact, it is finance that is probably our go-to place where a lot of customers first hear of Winshuttle, the first touch point, and then they expand. And you won't be surprised by any of this, whether it's general ledger, closing consoles, or managing of assets, or completely taking over the purchase to pay process. All of that is quite normal across our client landscape. Secondly, is how we manage and build master data, particularly if you're a product-orientated company, which is a little bit different to you, but master data is really important, how you build it, how you control it, and there is a plethora of sub-records that need to be created at the same time, and we're very good at that. And we tend to compete directly with SAP's own solution, which they call MDG. It's not unusual for us to either supplement and fill in the spaces, or actually bid head-to-head with MDG. The last area where we're seeing, obviously, a huge increase now in active projects. A couple of years ago, it was always a question you had to tick the box, but now very active project around S4HANA. And indeed, what we're talking about today, there's a case study at the end as to how our digital transformation has helped a major organization around their S4HANA program, and we'll touch on that at the end. So Now I'm going to get into some numbers, and you don't need to follow this in great detail because everything I show you today you can have on the slide deck, of course. But when we look at why digitize when you're potentially already looking at Winshuttle Studio, or in your case, a bona fide user, well, let's look at what it actually means. So there's two sort of opportunities in the way that we automate. And the first one is something called data automation. And I've tried to define what this is. So data automation is the actual SAP data load or extract is automated. And your experience is with Winshuttle on the Excel version, no problem. However, if you're working on this particular subject, then you will know, whether you be in HQ in New York or whether you're in the service center, there is still a host of manual tasks surrounding this, which is communication with your colleagues, the handling of the emails, the handling of the data preparation, the validation that this data is correct, the reworking and return to your colleagues when the data is not correct. All of this is done by you guys in IT who've had experience, or maybe a service center operative. Now, when we talk about digital process automation, we are saying that we automate all of this. So because we build a digital workflow and a digital user interface, we're saying we're going to take care of that communication. So that communication backwards and forwards to each other is contained within the self-service solution. No emails, no chat, no phones. We're going to say we automatically manage the tasks. We automatically manage the data quality, because each step that a user takes, we won't let them move forward in the solution without providing us with the correct data. And of course, we assist them to do that through drop downs, menus, search fields, so they can only actually select quality data. You might call that, often called, data guardrailing. So you can only move forward with the correct data. And of course, at the end of the process, when everyone has contributed, the final actually communication with SAP, let's call it the data upload, is of course there as well. Of course it is. What you can then do is have a final approval. It might be that you're the gatekeeper, so final approval might well remain as a service center event. Now, if we try and look at that, how can we put some numbers on it? Again, don't worry about these numbers. I'm happy to go through them at another time, and I'm also happy to share this presentation. So here we go. This is from another client. There's no names, no pack drill. You won't know anything about it. It's about how we explain to them the difference between Studio and digital process automation. So here we go. So the first thing is, this is a little blurry, so please bear with me, but this is actually an analysis done, a forecast analysis done on something, one of the SAP logs called a ST03 report. And we call that in our language a BVA. We have this algorithm which is built by Winshuttle solely around Studio on how we can forecast the benefit if you automate the data piece. That is the piece that you know, Studio. So on this occasion, we were looking at this item, which was creation of sales orders. There was almost 71,000 of them, and purely the data automation was equivalent to about 11.8 FTE. So what we then did is we tried to show them what that would look like broken down into data automation and process automation. So here it goes. So they had 11.82 FTE at 20,000 euros per employee. They were based in Eastern Europe, so that is the cost of an employee. So the data automation was valued at 236,000 euros. And then we said, let's move forward into process automation. And here we made an assumption. So we said, look, we believe that handling a transaction in your service center costs around 20 euros. We know that's under the benchmark. Deloitte actually benchmark it at 30. And what we said was, look, if we take data automation, as we've done here, that value of 236,000 actually breaks down to around €3.50 per transaction. So we've now reduced the cost of that transaction to 16.50. What we then said was, if we take away all of the communication, all of the tasks, all of the emails, chat, phone calls, preparation of data, reworking, sending back, then we fundamentally believe that we can get you down to be a gatekeeper only, and that gatekeeper task should be no more than about €5. Therefore, you can clearly see there's a much bigger benefit hidden in the process, meaning that on 71,000 transactions, there's another €11.50 in it, which put together means that sales orders digitized end to end is a huge number compared to just data automation. As I said, I'll give you this slide if this helps you focus the way that you think as well. Maybe slightly different for you, I absolutely agree. But this is how we presented it to this client. And needless to say, they were amazed. And needless to say, they moved directly into an evolved conversation because that was really where it was all hidden. So that was good. So I'm just going to hand over to Achin now in 2 minutes. Remember, we talked about this digital shared services hub. It will look and feel like you want to look and feel. It won't look like SAP. You'll build or create user interfaces that are appropriate for each process and appropriate for each skill set. As we said, icons, drop downs, menus. Now, what else do we deliver? We deliver process visibility, because remember what I said? We now manage all the KPIs. There's no more chat, email, phones. Everything takes place within the solution. So we're able to see all of the touch points. So if you're a head of a shared service center and you want to look at the purchase to pay process, you will clearly see why some areas of your business are better than others. Are others slower at approving? Are others slower at clearing up various anomalies? Everything is visible, and that's what's different. Visible granularity. So when you start working towards KPIs, key performance indicators, you now have all of the detail, and it's all automatically collected. This is not a manual solution. This data is delivered directly to this dashboard, so you can do that. So that's what this solution really means. It means all of these things. Now, very quickly, 1 minute on someone very close to some of your people in Budapest. This is Nokia. And Nokia have done exactly this. So they are based in Budapest, just where your shared service center is. They're one of our largest customers. They have something like 3,000 people on our platform. And the question is, why? Why did they do that? Why did they go there? Well, originally, they had a major challenge. So they actually merged with Alcatel-Lucent. And what this gave them was two huge organizations with two completely different SAP setups. And sadly, the forecast saving of crashing these two organizations together at the back office could not be met. So they started to embark on a thought process as to how they could do it. And then came along this one on the right, the strategy, S4HANA. So now they had two very different companies and a goal and an aim to come together under S4HANA. This was going to take a long, long time. So what they did was they called time out on this. and they said, we need a digital solution. We need some way of managing all of our processes. Let's call it covering up SAP completely. So it's completely opaque. The user know whether they're working on the Nokia solution, the Alcatel, or the S4HANA. And they launched this back in 2016, 17, and we joined the race back in 17. We already were there as a small solution, and actually in 2018 we won the nomination, let's call it that. And this is what we are to them now. We are known as a single platform for orchestrating all work. Every digital solution now that revolves around SAP that comes out of the GBS in Hungary is based on Winshuttle. It's all developed and delivered locally. First of all, it was developed by our partner who sits in Budapest. And more latterly, it's been developed and delivered by Nokia themselves, because there's been this transition where we work together, we blurred the lines between the two teams, and now Nokia have this capability. All, remember, as I said right at the start, in a very non-technical platform. So nobody working on this is a coder. Nobody has any particular coding skill or ABAP programming or anything like that. They're all generally business analysts and consultants. And Nokia is a great story, and just coincidentally in the same city that you share as well. So that's me done. Now we're going to switch to Achin, and he's going to start right at the beginning, which is where you guys in New York want to start. We're going to start with, hey, we know Studio quite well, transaction and query, but what is it we're going to do differently when we move into Evolve, and how is Evolve going to help us manage all of those existing scripts and new ones? So Achin, if you're okay, you can pick this up.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
We can see Studio, Excel to SAP automation.
Fantastic, thank you so much, Tim. So yeah, so I'll leave where Tim left off, which is you in New York, in the US, you are already using Studio, which is this whole Excel to SAP capability, and as you can see, the arrows go both ways. So Studio has data upload capability into SAP, as well as data extraction capability from SAP tables. So you're already using this quite heavily, I think, in finance, project systems, etc. as well. And so for people who don't know or who have not been exposed to it, what is we into simple to understand Excel template. So from an end user perspective, it's an Excel template, and within that there is an Excel add-in, and you are able to really select the right automation and then use these buttons to connect to SAP to either load data, validate the data so you get the responses back, and then create or update the data into SAP in mass. So you already have this capability. I'm now going to take that forward to what is called Studio Manager. So with Studio Manager, what you get is you get a centralized repository of all your templates, all your scripts. So now you have much better version control. You can have a workflow process on it. So any new solution that gets created, so let's say now you have a distributed users in different countries, but you want to make sure everything is done with the same naming convention, the same controls, etc. You could have a workflow for the script itself, the automation template itself. You can also have a workflow for the data object. So let's say it's a journal. You want to make sure that the journal is always approved. Any finance process is approved by another set of eyes before it goes into SAP. You can have that sort of workflow. And then once it's approved, you don't have to have someone manually process it, or with a click of a button process it with Winshuttle. You could just schedule it on the server, so you can also run it on the server. There are a few more capabilities, but I think based on our discussion, these are some of the important ones to discuss. So I'll take you through a demo of this, and then we will also get into Evolve, which is what Tim mentioned, the web forms and the digital process automation. And essentially what this will give you is the scale, right? So it's for, for 30, 40, 50 users, it's okay to manage it with desktop based solution. But as soon as you are into, user numbers bigger than that, you need something like Studio Manager to manage all your solutions, to have full audit, to have the approvals, and that is what it will give you. So with that, I'm going to jump into Studio Manager. The Studio Manager has this concept of apps. So, you could create different apps for different functional areas. So, you can have a finance app, a HR app, a plant maintenance, basis app. You can have different apps for different functional areas, or you can have different apps for different countries. So only people within those apps can have access to the transaction scripts, the query scripts, and all the audit approvals sitting behind those, right? So you could create those structures, and then there's an administrator app who is responsible for governing all the licenses and so on and so forth. So I'll start off with the demo of Studio Manager. So
actually, it's Tim. Just to be clear on the phraseology, when you say Studio Manager, you mean that is the subset part of Evolve as well, don't you?
Yes. So as I showed you on the previous slide, this is almost like, just for everyone's information, this is almost like Lego blocks, right? So you've got Studio right now. You add Studio Manager capabilities, so you kind of get all of these capabilities, and then you can, Evolve has all of these other capabilities, but it also has process automation capabilities. So it's adding capabilities to it. But yes, if you have Studio Manager, you have all, your server infrastructure would be similar for Evolve as well. It's just adding more capabilities. All right. So I'm going to jump into an end user experience. So as an end user, I am opening a blank Excel file. I'm going to log on to my Winshuttle Studio from Excel itself. And then I'll select an app that I'm interested in. And throughout the session, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me and ask me questions. That's completely fine, because I'm sure other people would have the same question. So here, if I click on switch app.
Did you need to share your screen?
I am sharing my screen.
Can everybody see Action's screen? Because I can't.
Yeah, I see the Evolve login.
Okay, you're all fine. Sorry, Action. It's just me.
All right. Okay, great. Okay, so you can see I have all of these apps. I've got a digital office app. I've got an NPI app. I'll have a reference, right? So I've got lots of different apps here. So I'm going to select one of these apps. Let's say the digital office app. And then within there, if I, as an end user, if I come here, let's say I want to create a journal. So I can select my templates. Let's select a transaction data template. And then all my different templates, which are part of that app, is now available here. Obviously, in the list of apps, I will only see the list which I have access to. So, someone in Hungary, part of the finance team, might only have, the finance app, and so on and so forth. So in this case, I have this journal entry app, this finance digital office app, and within that, I want to create a journal. So I'm going to click open. And now a template for journal creation opens up for me, right? So now I have some, I'm sure you'll be familiar with these Excel templates. So let's say I want to create a journal for a given company code, and then I want to process this through a workflow.
Akit, just a minute. I have a question from Copenhagen.
Sure.
Does it require any special access? Like right now, your Winshuttle works based on SAP, but does it require any transaction script which is based on a desktop?
So from an access perspective, if you're using your current desktop capability, it's exactly the same. It's no different.
Okay, because I think the SAP has given two options. One is a transactional, which you can directly access from the SAP, and the second option is via the desktop, where a GUI needs to be activated, certain scripts. And at the moment,
Okay.
I think UNICEF doesn't allow that.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. So yes, everything that I'm showing you here is all transaction code based. If you look at it here, I'm processing it through the transaction code, and it doesn't need GUI scripting enabled on your PC.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So in this case, here is my template. What I have is a workflow behind the scenes where a journal can, as you can see the button here, it is test only. So I can only validate my journal at this point. I can't run it on a production system until it's approved. So I'm validating that my journal is fine, that it's balanced. So my journal is completely fine. If there are errors, I would see those errors here. So all your current studio capability that you're used to using, they are all available. And then I can submit this for a workflow process. If I click on submit, I click on submit. As you can see here, I have selected, by default, this process has something called a manual run. So as an originator, I'm filling the data. It is now going to go to a reviewer. The reviewer will approve the data, and then they'll manually run it. I could also have something called auto run. And the way that would work is I would create the data, it would be approved, and then the system will automatically post it. So both options can be possible. But I think for today's demo, manual run would be better. So I'm going to select myself as the approver. You can block it so that an originator cannot be an approver. So you can set that up as well. I'm now going to click on next. If I have any supporting documents with this journal, then I can attach those supporting documents. I'm going to click next. And at this point, I'm going to hit the submit button. And then automatically this task would go to the next person in the workflow. In this case, it is me. I would be informed with an email saying there's a task for me to perform. And then if I click on the tasks here, I should see that journal 6 as a task for me to review the data, right? And note that the same concept that I'm showing you will be available for any object, as Tim mentioned at the beginning. The same concept would be available for any data object in SAP. So in this case, I have this journal that I want to approve. I can either open the Excel file, review it, and then approve it. In this case, I'm going to say, I want to approve it right away from here. I'll give my comments. Yeah, and then this completes, and then it goes to the next stage. In this case, as a reviewer, because this is approved, I want to now process this. So now I'm going to open this Excel. You can see it's validated. All the data looks fine. And now I'm going to try and run this. As soon as I click on run, you can see it has prompted me that this is a non-production system. So I can't, because it's an approved file, I have to run it on a production system. And similarly, when it was not approved, if the user tries to run it on a production system, it would say, because it's not approved, you cannot run it on a production system. So only you're building governance that only approved files can be processed on a production system. So again, I'm going to select my production system here. Looks fine. And I'm going to click on the run button here. I can give my comments if I have, and then I can go ahead and click the run option here, and it would create the journal for me, and I should see the feedback back in my Excel. Right. So,
Rod here from New York. Yeah, I just want to reconfirm that that we can set up our workflow in such a way that the person who's going to run the script, the final approved script, will be a different person than the review.
Yeah. So let me clarify that, right? So there are so in Studio Manager there are pre-configured workflows that are delivered. So in the Studio Manager workflows cannot be adjusted, and the pre-configured workflows are requester can request it. It can go for an approval, and then it can be sent back to the requester. So that's option number one. Option number two, requester requests it. It goes to the approver, and the approver would post it. That's option number two. And option number three, requester, then it goes to an approver, and then the system would post it. So those are the three that are delivered out of the box, and that's available in Studio Manager. If your scenario is different from this, so let's say you need 2 approvals or you need it to go to a third person, then that option is available in Evolve. So if you go to full Evolve, then you can build any workflow as you want, right? You can have conditional logic, you can have 5 steps, etc. But as part of Studio Manager, we have pre-configured out-of-the-box workflows, which are the 3 that I just mentioned.
Thank you.
Good.
Any other questions? All right. So as you can see, all of this is now completed. I'm going to say hit the complete task and then say completed, and this task will be completed, right? Now a full audit history of this is also stored on Evolve, right? So now if I go to Evolve, if I go to my digital office and look at documents, and let's look at the journal creation. Yeah, so GL create, you can see there's a full audit history. This is the journal I just created. If I look at the process history, it will give me the full process history of, when was it started, who started it, if it was a different reviewer, who reviewed it, who did the run, when was it completed. So the full process history is available for each of these workflows. And if you wanted the original Excel as well, even that is available.
And Achin, with this functionality around Studio Manager, which is contained within Evolve, how does it, is it a similar process where someone is, let's say, building a new script and they want that script approved? How does that look?
Yeah, it's very similar to how you would build it today, right? So if I, give me a second, let me just open up Studio and I can show that to you.
So this is where I'm building a new script, but I would like it to go through an approval process before it gets put into production. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. So let me just open Studio. Let me just open one of these. All right. Okay, so here is my Studio. I'm going to go ahead and click a new script. So I want to create a new script, but before that, I want to change this. Let's say I want to create this script in one of these other apps. Let's say it's for HR, and so you want to create it in an HR app. But I'm going to click create it under my app, and then I want to create a new transaction script, which is an upload script. I want to create it in a non-production environment first, and then once it's approved, it can be run on the production system. And I'm just going to say create a vendor, right? So I'm going to go ahead and start recording. So this is, currently you already use this for for creating studio scripts. It's the same concept. Okay. And yeah, I'm just going to give the telephone number. All right. I'm going to give a different name. Okay, that should work. And then I'm going to go ahead and save.
Okay, yep.
All right, so that's my template created, right? I'm just going to go ahead and auto map for today's demo. So all of these fields are now mapped to relevant columns in my Excel, and then you can do all the other functionality here. So it's exactly the same capability that you currently have. Now, once this is completed, I can now save this. I'm going to save the Excel template and the script. And now, because I am in the Studio Manager or Evolve, I see this button called Evolve, where I have this option to submit. So as soon as I click on submit, I get an option. What am I submitting? So I can I can rename vendor create. I can then select, what is the data template? I'll use the standard data template that I just created. I can then select what is the type of a workflow that I want. Do I, the ones that I just mentioned. Do I want no workflow at all, review and post in one step, review and post separately, or the custom workflow, which is only available with Evolve. The custom workflow would not be available with Studio Manager. So these are the three options I have. So I can say review and post one step, who the reviewer should be. So I can select that, which server should this be assigned to. So I can select those things. And yeah, and then I can hit next and then submit this.
And this is
Right
the sort of
now,
control.
the script. So now the script has gone for a workflow process. And so whoever is the approval of the script. So typically, let's say you might have 15 developers, but only one approver. So whoever is that approver, they would get a task in their studio to then review the script and approve it. Right. So they can say, okay, I approve this, and then similarly, for the data process, they will approve the script and then it becomes available in production.
That's perfect. I think that is what we wanted to cover. So that's great.
Right. So it's approval for both the script as well as the data files for any of these areas.
Great. Thanks for that, Achin. Perfect.
All right. Okay, so that was Studio Manager. Any questions before I move on to the Evolve forms and workflows? Okay, if not,
I think that's good. But
okay, so if we go to Evolve, let's cover the Excel bit. So the additional capability that you get from the Excel workflow is what we just mentioned, which is the custom workflow. Otherwise, all the other things that I had just mentioned, you will get all of those with Evolve as well. Now, in addition to this, what you get in Evolve is this capability of forms, so rich user interface where you have radio buttons, pull down menus, maps, etc. Very, very customized web forms. You can have a workflow with 3, 4, 5 different people in the process, people in the steps. Each person in that workflow will have a personalized view of the form, and all of that would have a deep integration with SAP. You'll have forms like these. And very important, I think, for your business, we'll have translation for each country. So as these different people from different regions would access these forms, they'll all be automatically translated. We'll have workflow with parallel steps, sequential steps, delegations, out of office assignment, escalations, all of those things that you'd expect from a workflow. All of those things are available. And then finally, as Tim mentioned, there are full reports and KPI metrics of the overall workflow, but you can also combine the workflow and the data together and then come up with good process analytics. So both of those things are available.
Okay, so really, actually, it's those three things, isn't it? It's the new defined user interface. It's the collaboration flow to connect people together, and then it's the KPI data. That's what transforms the process and where the big money is, isn't it? In terms of saving lots of reworking and passing information around.
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely. Great. So now there are different ways.
I can answer one question.
Yes, please.
How is that files are being stored? Like, because just now when you showed the transaction for GL, so it showed the C colon. So is it centralized or is it on the individual user desktop?
This is our enterprise platform, which means that it is centrally loaded. It's an on-premise or private cloud, as we probably call it these days. So it's a centrally built solution. Yes, it's not a standalone.
Correct. It is server based.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Achin.
Yeah. So there are different ways in which you can access these solutions. You could either have, you can create a finance hub like this where all your solutions are embedded in one place. So either you could have a portal, your internal portal, where you could build something like this, or you could build a portal on Winshuttle to build a finance hub. Or out of the box, you already have all your solutions listed in one place, and so an end user can come here. They can come to this finance app, look at the templates, and they could trigger the process from here, right? So in this case, I'm going to trigger a journal process. As soon as I click there, a form opens up. The form is intuitive, easy to use. Let's say this is a month and journal. The user might have done their analysis already in Excel. So either they can manually type all of these things in, right? So cost center, profit center, they can manually type this in, or if they've done their analysis in Excel, they could actually upload an Excel template as well. So they could upload an Excel directly into the web form, right? If there are any errors, in this case, I had a typo and I had an error, I would automatically identify what the errors are, right? So I have rules built in so that I'm identifying any errors that are in the data, right? So I'm now correcting this data. I'm saying this is a month and journal for Hungary, let's say. I can validate this against SAP. So again, the same validation that we had in Excel, I'm doing a similar validation, but now right from the form. I can then send it to a team. In this case, it's just myself, but I could send it to a team. You can enforce that each of these person are different. There is no overlapping of approvals. We can enforce that. And then I'm going to send this for an approval. So I'm going to say save en route. And this process goes to the next person. In this case, there's a task list. So, all your tasks will be listed in one place. I've got a task as an accounting clerk. I've got a task to perform. And you can see this is a different view of the form. I can't change some of these header items. Some of these fields I can change. It actually tells me where in the workflow am I, who started it, when was it started. So it gives me a full view of what the workflow is. If I go to loop 3 here, it actually tells me if it's rejected, it would go back to the originator. If it's approved, if it's above a certain amount, it would go to a different approval matrix. If it's below a certain amount, it would go through a different matrix. So again, you can have all of those conditional logic. I can give my comments. There are SLAs. If I don't do my task in a given time, I can send escalations and reminders. I'm going to approve this. And then again, in this case, it goes to the last stage where they can review it, make any final changes, and then say submit. And then at that point, the journal gets created. Right. So again, full audit history, who started it, who approved it, who processed it, all of that full audit history is available. And without any retyping of any data, the data is created in SAP. Now, these sort of transactional data typically has very simple workflows. When it comes to master data, something like a business partner, something like a vendor master, that has much more complex workflows. 3, 4, 5 different steps involved, and it also has all of these master data elements that we can validate against, right? So you can have maps, you can have different business partners to create. For vendor master, let's say I want to search for vendors to make sure that I don't create any duplicate vendors, right? So I could actually do a query directly into SAP, extract some vendors based on selection criteria, and then based on that, create my next vendor. So all of those complex things that you need while you're creating your master data or processing your transactional data, all of those things can be handled through Winshuttle.
Okay, great.
Any questions on this?
So,
hi, I have a question.
Yes, of course.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. I'm just trying to think. I mean, this is very impressive.
But I'm just trying to think which are the use cases that will give us an advantage of using this
Okay.
tool over and above, let's say, using something within our SAP system or using something like Fiori in the future. What is the advantage of using this? Because these transactions do exist in core ECC, correct? So what's the what do you call it? The value add of using these forms outside of SAP?
Well, first of all, I'll take this first of all. If you look back at my part of the introduction, if you take this digital transformation, we take care of all the communication that sits within the concept of a self-service transaction. You don't break out to actually use SAP. You don't have the communication problem with your colleagues, where you email them or you call them. That's quite fractured. So this is much more cost effective. And that's why, as we said, you can very easily forecast a transaction dropping from 20 euros a transaction down to 5, because at the end of the transaction, you're merely becoming, say, the gatekeeper, the approver. And none of that communication or reworking has been necessary, because you've done guardrailing of the data, making sure that people only insert the right data, as you saw here. Action couldn't apply for creating a new vendor without searching the other vendors to make sure it wasn't a duplicate. All of these things which break down your process and cost so much. Now, Achin, perhaps I can toss it over to you to take the question about the difference between creating in Fiori, because there's a huge technical difference, isn't there?
Absolutely, and I think this pandemic has actually reinforced that point and why these sort of solutions are so powerful, right? So what this has shown us is, we need all businesses these days have to be super flexible and quick to adjust as the business changes, right? And Winshuttle is a completely low code, no code to building these solutions. So now you don't need an expensive ABAP contractor or an IT team to build these solutions. You could have a super user or a functional user build these solutions. So that's point number one. So skill set is completely different. So now you could distribute these capabilities much wider. Point number two, because of that, you're able to build solutions much faster. Right? I'm sure Tim will mention some real examples, but it's at least 3 times faster, if not more, to build solutions. Right? So if instead of 3 months, we could do it in 1 month. So that's the kind of time scales we're looking at.
Indeed.
And the last point, which is also very important, is the ability to adjust solutions. Now, the once you build solutions in, let's say, Fiori or ABAP workflows or forms, you are able to, yes, to be able to change solutions. It takes far longer. To be able to change, add one more field here, it will take you minutes to do that. If I wanted to change the look and feel on some of these forms, it will take me minutes or hours to do that and make it ready to production. So that sort of flexibility is very important for most businesses these days.
I think you're absolutely right, and I'll bring forward again the Nokia story. So one of the competitors in the Nokia story was actually building inside Fiori, and when the comparison was given between Fiori projects being slightly more structured, slightly more traditional IT centric, what they found was that we were about a quarter of the time spent. So a project was measured within the Fiori team at 3 to 4 months, and yet the Hungary team were able to consider building it in Winshuttle in 22 days. So that agility was huge. And the second part also was very important, very important. And that second part was, what if I need to change it? How quickly? And again, Nokia found that the internal Winshuttle team could realistically make changes within hours or even days, rather than scheduling a full, again, project around Fiori, which may have taken weeks or months. So it's a very different solution and very much akin to being much faster and much more agile. I think that's fair to say.
And this is what Gartner talks about. There's a whole new trend coming up in the next 3 to 5 years. You'll start noticing the whole low code, no code. If you look at Microsoft, if you look at all companies are going in this direction, and low code, no code will give a different kind of business agility which has never existed before. And yeah, so the whole market is going in that direction right now.
And indeed, and let's look at the use case that we were asked to look at in May. So in May, when we presented to your finance shared service team, back then we were asked to put our story forward for purchase to pay invoice processing. So at that point, we shared it with our invoice processing partner, the organization that digitizes your PDFs or your paper. We actually use our digital junction to actually feed that data in. A service within Evolve actually kicks off your Miro application or your Miro transaction, which of course is the internal transaction in SAP that matches invoices and POs and goods receipts. And what Evolve actually does then is it sits and watches for errors around Miro. So it sees that SAP issues a Miro error, and we actually then take that inside an interface to actually present to the user so that they can physically do what we call invoice handling. How do I handle an error? What does it look like to me? And actually, I remember on the Digital Hub, you had an example of invoice handling where and this was very similar to what we showed back in May. How do I handle this error? What does it look like? Do I see the invoice as well?
Yeah.
So again,
exactly all of that.
I think that's very different. You've got digital integration of different platforms, i.e. the digitizing of invoices into Winshuttle. You've got Winshuttle Evolve actually triggering Miro and waiting for the response. And when it gets a response that is, I'm sorry, I can't process because the goods receipt is missing, we repackage it, put it inside a user interface and make sure it gets workflowed to the right person. There's a lot here. And that's why we're so attractive to the GBS and shared service industry, because they can create and build things quickly and deliver quickly. And it doesn't matter how complex the solution is either. It can be very simple, like a holiday request, or very complex, like managing an invoice.
And sorry, one last point. I think, Tim, you brought up a great point, like a holiday request. You could also use this for non-SAP based processes.
Absolutely.
I mean, our USP is this whole SAP integration, but you could use this whole low code, no code for any raising a ticket for for IT, or raising a ticket for holiday request, or any of those things. It can be used for those.
And remember also, if you are one of those organizations that have invested in what we would call generic RPA solutions, you can actually stitch these inside the processes. So you can have a mixture of SAP integration carried out by Winshuttle and then third-party integration carried out by an RPA tool. The user never sees it. They just move through the form, clicking the button. They don't know what's actually operating behind. And again, our partner in Budapest has become a bit of a pioneer on this by actually integrating UiPath and Winshuttle together, and the user doesn't see it or know.
Yeah. Sorry, we ramble for 10 minutes with that because we are very proud of what we are doing here. So
I hope the answers at least painted a picture of what's possible, for sure. So yes, this is the invoice handling interface, isn't it? Where you're seeing the invoice as well. Yeah, absolutely.
I see somebody else has a question.
Sure, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Tim, and thank you, Achin, for this nice presentation. I got a very quick question. See, we are using maybe around 25 Winshuttle templates right now. Okay, so how that will embed in this new tool, or how can we can add the workflow to the existing one? Is there any tool available for that, or I need to restart from scratch once again, making them in this new platform? over?
No, so they'll be used as is, right? So as is,
Absolutely.
as I showed here, I showed you the transaction script. You just open that in the new version of Studio, and then you save it on the server. So instead of saving it on your desktop, you open it in the Studio Manager mode, and then just save it on the server, and then it becomes available on the server.
So what
So
we're saying,
you don't have to redevelop any of these scripts.
yeah. So what we're saying actually is all the legacy work, all the legacy scripts that are working, they get ported across, don't they?
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. That answered my question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Anshul. This is Shankar. I have a question.
Hi, Shankar. Yeah.
Yeah. My question is regarding because you mentioned something about these waveforms for the simple data entry or KPI reports. Can this waveform be deployed onto the mobile devices, or still this solution remains as a desktop solution?
We're absolutely fine with you deploying that on a tablet or a mobile. Absolutely. Yeah.
But
So
how
this
does
whole
it work? Like, how you just create some kind of deployable object? What is the runtime? How does it really works on the mobile devices? What does it need along with your development objects?
Okay. Actually.
yeah, so it's the whole technology stack is responsive. So it's so the experience is responsive. So it would work on mobile tablets or computer, but it would still work through the browser engine. So it would
Yeah.
still work through the mobile browser.
Mm-hmm. So it's HTML5, isn't it? And it re-renders itself to the device that it's actually displayed on or cast on.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of demo to really quickly show how does it really work and look? Any use case there?
I think from a use case perspective, it has been
I
more
think
around.
most probably anyway, people they might use say for KPIs or just a simple data entry. I understand like we can't really use for a complex data entry. That is given. But if it
Yeah.
is just simple data entry or just a simple approval or anything, that kind of thing, I would like to see like what will be the really development type or such kind of apps and how
Yeah.
easily it can be deployed on mobile devices, including
Okay.
mobile phones, not only mobile tablets.
Okay. So I don't know what you've got, actually. You may not have anything ready to go because we don't normally do a mobile demo.
No,
But
I'm just gonna show you how it looks on a mobile, right? So this is just, as you render, if it's a tablet, if it's a mobile, you can see the form re-renders, right, automatically for you, right? So it re-renders automatically. So this is obviously just the test in the product itself. But if I open this on the mobile, it would re-render automatically. So that's point number one. From an approval perspective, we have email-based approval as well. So as I was running these processes, I was getting all of these emails to do my tasks and inform me of what I need to do. So I can have links here itself, and I can approve my tasks through emails as well. So email-based approvals are available, but we can also render the forms through the mobile and tablets.
yes, we've done embedded approval for quite a while, where we actually embed a button inside an email where you can actually approve direct from an email if that's faster. Or alternatively, as Achin is showing you, you can actually go to the actual interface itself. So yeah. And we actually spoke about this 2 or 3 years ago, actually, that said, we found that UNICEF was a very exciting customer to talk to, because we felt even back then in 2017, 18, we felt that portability, being able to be mobile, might be quite attractive for your business, because you obviously have a lot of people in the field, and if we can assist them, then we'd be delighted to get into that discussion.
And then in terms of then licensing, the person who is approving those kind of stuff using mobile devices, they don't really need then full-fledged license for Winshuttle Studio, right? They will have some kind of simple,
no.
or do they need a license, or without license they can do such kind of task?
Now,
as long as they have SAP access, I meant.
Yeah. Now you're used to Studio, which is an individual license, and it's quite a sizable fee. Now, when you're in the digital platform, you're down into something which we call standard users, and these are very small money, very small. They're nothing like your runner costs or your developer costs, nothing like that at all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, good. That's a good question.
Yeah, how does it build up? Like, is it server based or the cloud based? Because right now, Ajit he showed based it on the same form can be shown on the mobile devices. So, the question is whether it's a cloud based or server based. Because if it's a
Yeah.
cloud based, you can directly go through HTTP. But if it's a server based, maybe some installation will be required on the local mobile or something.
No, there's no installation actually on the mobile. This platform Evolve is server central. It's a server-based solution. So whether you host it yourself or whether you put it on an Azure platform or a private cloud, but yes, it is an infrastructure-based solution. But no, there'll be nothing is loaded on the desktop, the tablet, or the mobile. There's nothing to load.
Okay.
Yeah, it works through the browser.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, and the other thing that is interesting as well is how we've spoken about development and ownership. So as you may know, we've spoken a lot about things that happen in Budapest, like our partner there that's actually been able to educate and set Nokia off to develop their own stuff. And I think it would be a very interesting conversation, maybe not today, but to have with you guys, is to say, well, what would you want to do? Would you want to create your own group, your own center of excellence, where you could be responsible for building and deploying these solutions like Nokia? Because none of you would need to be an ABAP programmer or anything like that. It's all quite simple stuff. And certainly if you're capable of building a Winshuttle studio script, then you will be capable of also being educated in how to deliver an Evolve solution. And that would be a very interesting conversation to have as to how you see your role in this. And then what we can do is adapt how we might help you through either the Nokia story, where the partner took the lead and Nokia followed, and now it's the other way around, and the fact that Nokia lead and our partner merely provides mentorship. All of these things are up for discussion, as we would say. But you don't have to answer that now, but I think it's something you should consider, is to say, how would we take control of this? Yeah.
I think we have one more question from, I think, Sushil.
Sushil, question.
No, I already finished my question.
Okay.
Oh, still got your hand up.
No, but
thank
your
you,
hand
thank
is still up. You have to lower your hand then.
Excellent. So we are coming towards our end of time, and I think it's fantastic that you're taking this decision. It gives you super control over your historic work, let's call it that, your historic use of Winshuttle, but also it opens up a whole new world as to what can be achieved around processes, be they finance or master data or out in the field or office-based, mobile-based. You now have it all. And it's a simple case of these standard digital user licenses rather than the much more expensive studio licenses. So you will be in a great place. So if there's no more questions, I just wanted to thank you all for joining today. And I sincerely hope that what we did inspired you and gave you some ideas for the future.
Yeah, hi, can I ask one question before we wind up?
Yes, of course.
Hi. So thanks for all this information. Very, very interesting. There was a comment made that this solution works with non-SAP systems as well, right?
Yes.
So because I don't know, my knowledge of Winshuttle is very limited, but the way we have been using has been for mass data upload, so to speak, where you actually use standard SAP transactions behind the scene. But does this tool, or can this tool also work with, let's say, not standard SAP transaction? Like, for example, I'm just thinking certain use cases around web forms, where let's say the processes are paper-based processes today.
Yes.
Can they be converted like a digital forms, and then maybe there is no standard SAP transaction behind the scene, But
Yes.
let's say data is stored somewhere, I don't know, maybe in external database or maybe even in our
Yes.
SAP HANA database. Such a thing is possible through this, yeah?
It's not just is possible, it's a very important part of the story,
Okay.
in the fact that those processes that are just not related to SAP, is it common for customers to build them? Yes, it is. And if it means that it just ends up in a database, or we load the form to another solution, or we integrate it via a web service or an API, that's very normal. We create this whole digital network, and it's just that probably what we do tend to ask is that our clients, of course, are SAP based, because that's where a lot of our knowledge lies. But your example is really important. Very normal.
I mean, a common use case, at least I've seen the same solution being used at least three of our clients, is manual payments, right? When you do manual payments, you want to check, have I made a duplicate payment? Which bank am I making the payments via, etc. So all of that is typically done via emails and so on. What our at least three of our customers have done is they've built a solution of manual payments through Winshuttle, not integrating to SAP. It just is a set of data that sits on an SQL database at the back end. But now it's a process to make sure that your manual payments are always approved, and there's a full audit of when the payment was made, via which bank, etc.
I think that's a really good one. I've forgotten about that. Yep, where we actually rely on the SAP data to tell us whether something's already been paid, but actually the output is something not SAP related at all. And the ones that Achint and I have done in the past have actually even just been the final output has been the bank file. That's fine.
And to answer Paddy, maybe just a small information here. The things that SAP has given something called GUI scripting, and we also have got something on SAP. So from GUI scripting, I think we are able to do the web forms and all. But here in this case, I think they are bypassing GUI scripting. And at the moment, I think UNICEF does not allow GUI scripting.
No, you're right. A lot, actually, by all means step in, but this is a very normal question. We don't require GUI scripting at all in any form. And yes, it's quite normal that our customers always start with that point. GUI scripting is forbidden. Achin, would you echo that point?
Yeah, 100%. We don't need GUI scripting.
No.
We work with, we work with standard transaction codes, with custom transaction codes, with BAPIs, function modules. So we work with all of those. We also do support GUI scripting if customers need it, but most of our customers don't use GUI scripting at all.
And quite often, actually, it's just shut down and forbidden, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I think one last point we've not mentioned, but when it comes to other systems, if you wanted to update other systems, the way that would work is via web services and REST API, right? So that was the third sort of in that SAP Halo message that Tim shared. That was the third box there. And so if you wanted to, we've got some customers where they have multiple ERPs, they've got JD Edwards and a few others, and they still do all of that data collection via Winshuttle, and then they have a web service which kind of moves the data to those other systems. So that is also possible.
And again, the user experience. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Just one. So Achint, you mentioned that it can also be done via web services.
Yes.
To SAP.
Well, web services to other systems or to SAP as well, right? So if your SAP has a web service you want to call, then yes, we can do that as well.
Oh, okay. I think okay. Thanks. Yeah.
Super. Good point, Achin. Yeah. Rod, thank you for calling everyone together.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, do you have other additional questions? Prakash?
Oh, and of course, if you do have...
sorry, this is Prakash. I'm here. Yeah. So I don't have any additional questions based on the demo or presentation that we have seen so far. Thank you.
Okay. So just as a matter of housekeeping, we will share the video link, of course, for this meeting. We will share the deck that started off the meeting. And of course, as always happens, I'm sure that you'll find a question please send us the questions via an email, maybe via Rod or maybe direct to myself and David, but we'll answer all of your questions, I promise you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. It's been great to
Thank
have
you.
so much contribution. Thank you very much. And bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, everybody.